Good morning, Santa Rosa. So I bring you greetings from my home community, Heart and Soul Center of Light. And I want you to know that I am here today because I love Dr. Edward. And absolutely, I am seldom away from my home community. And never have I left during the thunder and the lightning to go someplace else. So there is a gold star somewhere with my name on it. That much I know for sure, but let the record show I will come through wind, rain, hail, lightning, thunder in order to be present on behalf of my dear beloved brother, Dr. Edward. So I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here, and especially excited to have this time to play with you, Gary Lynn Floyd. Yes, yes, and your amazing musicianship. Thank you so very, very much. I'm so touched by Gary's work this morning that my original title for my talk today is Adventure in Faith. But now I am amending it to be Adventure in Faith, keep on walking. And for me, that fits so beautifully. I have come with the intention of bringing you some great news, really, some great news, and it's from the words of Ernest Holmes, who offers that the barriers between you and your greater good are not barriers in themselves, they are things of thought. And then there's a part of me that feels like I could just take that seat right there on the front row after having said that and just sit there and go, see? See, even that. Yeah, that. So, because my expectation is that in the process that things pop up for you, the barriers, because I think it's our human nature that we just want to test it. Well, what about, see, even that. Yep, nothing but a thought. Even that barrier, yep, that one too. That one as well. And so I kind of feel like the talk could do itself. But as much as I love Dr. Edward, I'm kind of scared of him too. So somehow I think that if I truly just took that seat on the front row and nodded every now and then and pointed at a few people, that there might be a problem later. So, given that, let's work our way through this quote a little more. Ernest Holmes goes on to say that it's because of the fact that our thoughts our barriers are but the things of thought, that all things are possible through faith, through our believing. And then he speaks to the master teacher Yeshua that the world ultimately came to call Jesus as having summed up this whole idea in Matthew 9 and 29, where it says that it is done unto you as you believe. And here's what I love that Ernest Holmes does with his work around that particular scripture, is he invites us to read it very carefully. And in my community, when we do it, everyone kind of says aloud, as, because Ernest Holmes is saying that if you pay attention, as you believe, but we pause after as, so you get that sense of that we must be engaged in the activity of believing. It's not as you said you believed, or as you wish you had believed, or as you're going to believe one day. It is instead the active mindset. It's the active consciousness of believing in the moment as you believe. Let's try that together, yeah? So right there, it is done unto you as you believe. Does that feel any different for you? Okay, for 2 or 3 people over here, it does. For the rest of you, it's just lost on you. I'm going to have to save that for my home community then. It doesn't travel as well as I thought it might. as it turns out. So he, in another place, so for anyone for whom it feels like, there's some confusion around that, Ernest Holmes offers us this. He says that confusion exists as a condition, but not as a reality. He says this mirage of confusion is in our own consciousness. Are we beginning to get a sense of a theme here? It's all an inside job, yeah? So he goes on to say that if, and I'm going to add when, in our human experience, confusion comes, what he suggests that we do is that we take our intellect and dive deep into our pool of peace. And we know we have access to that because we've experienced it in community this morning. We had a deep dive in our pool of peace. And then he says, through an act of faith, there's some action required. An act of faith, we open our eyes and we will see through this sense of confusion. We'll begin to get that it's not real. In my home community, we have as our annual theme for 2019, our theme is Adventure in Faith. Your faith is your fortune. And we have come to say of late, hashtag 2020 for 2020. Because we have a vision for a world that works for everyone. And we have a sense that we're going to have to see more clearly. We're going to have to train ourselves to see beyond our doubt, to see beyond our confusion, to see beyond our fears and our personal preferences and opinions in order to have 2020 in 2020. Make sense? Yes. I'm hoping you'll join me in this idea, this notion of an adventure in faith and recognizing that our faith is our fortune. We have as our daily read Ian LaVan Zant's Act of Faith. And I'm loving it, and I offered it to my community because there's so many good daily reads, but in addition, in the 25th anniversary edition, there is a reflection activity. So there's a question that I present as a mini workshop to get us thinking because it invites us to go beyond. I want to share with you a definition from the New Thought Dictionary of what faith is. Faith is the belief in the impossible from an objective viewpoint. I'll buy in. It also goes on to say it's unconditioned acceptance that there is an invisible intelligence which guides and an invisible law which controls, and the complete belief that it is now doing so in our life. That's what we're using as our context for faith. And then I offer you this. Where there's no faith in the future, there's also no power in the present. I am forever reminding myself of that. And here's something that I see played out in the world. I see this being foundational to what I experience with many young people. That where they do not have faith in the future, they also miss the power that they have in the present moment. That's on our watch. That's on our watch where there are those who don't understand that their power is in the present, but it has everything to do with the degree to which one has faith that there will be a tomorrow. See, if you don't believe that there's a tomorrow, and I don't mean just a 24-hour period, but a tomorrow a something to look forward to, a greater unfolding, a greater possibility, then you do not engage. You don't even assume, trust that you have anything now that can be parlayed. Is this making sense? Is this useful to us? Yeah. To the degree that we can get this, let me offer for you, let me submit for your approval, if you will, a scripture that I'm offering as a cautionary tale. I think it has embedded in it kind of a lot of our stuff, a lot of the stuff that keeps us in this place of limiting a perception of what's possible, also known as future, and thereby giving up, abdicating the power, the amazing power and presence that we have in any given moment. Also known as operating from faith, our belief as we believe. Yes? Here's the scripture I'm going to offer you. It's from Numbers 13. We meet the Hebrew children. The story theologians say about 2 years out of slavery. So 2 years with Moses on their trek to the promised land. And so at this point, Moses is given the direction to choose one person, a leader from each of the 12 tribes, and those 12 people are going to make up a reconnaissance mission team. And out they go to take a look at the promised land to see exactly what's there because they've been visualizing this. They've been talking about it. They have a sense of what it is. And now they need to know, what is it? And how can we have it? Now, here's something that's important, I think, in this story. The way the story is presented in Scripture, there are a few things that's important as I kind of set the stage here. One is that in discerning Scripture, I suggest that you consider that all of the symbols, all of the people, all of their names, all of the places are talking about you. I know the tendency will be to skim off the top and pick the good ones. Pick the ones you like, and that's going to be me. When in reality, it could be akin to, do y'all know anything about astrological charts? You know that there's well, let me not say it that way. You know that your particular chart, your astrological makeup, is always more than one sign. Well, likewise, your biblical understanding has you claiming and accepting the symbolism of more than one character. Because the names and places are all symbols of attributes. And so we're embracing all of it so that we can get a sense of, what does this have to do with my life? How is this relevant? So that's a backdrop. That's foundational to how I'm hoping that we will play with this scripture. But also, part of what's happening here is the Hebrew children and these 12 tribe leaders, part of their mission is to conquer the land. And I'm not here today to talk about conquering. Take a look at me. I certainly have not come here today to talk to y'all about conquering other people's land and people. That's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about, though, is our mindset. Our mindset around what's available to us. What we tell ourselves, well, let's see how they work this out. So they leave the compound where they are, and they go to the promised land. So now they have returned. The 12 leaders have all returned. And where are we? We're about 27. Here's their report. We entered the land you sent us to explore. And it's indeed it's all of that. And they describe it, and it's more than we ever dreamed of. However, the people living there are powerful. Their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there. Caleb, though, and he's the one that we probably are going to see most of ourselves in, said to the people, no, y'all cut that out because we can go there. This we can do. And the other men are arguing. They say, no, we cannot go up against them. And I'm going to cut to the chase for 33 because this is where I think we can really see our opportunity. In 33, they say, we even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we were grasshoppers. And that's what they thought too. What? Now they're mind readers as well. Not only were they insightful and able to perceive what they would be up against, and I'm talking about the inside job here. I'm not talking about their mission to conquer, etc. That's somebody else's talk. My talk today is about what are we doing on the inside? What's our perception of us? Now, I'm guessing that there's no one here today who is out on a search and seizure mission. But you may be negotiating a new mortgage or a refinance. You see, you may have the barrier, you may have a perception that the systems that are in place and where you fit in the system could be on the same level given your circumstance. Is this making sense? So I'm wanting us to see our lives detailed in this scripture. Where you see, this is big, this thing right here, I don't know if that I'm going to be able to do this. They're requiring more than I have. I don't perceive my credit rating to be sufficient. You understand what I'm saying? I don't perceive my resume to be at the level of which it's whatever game you're playing right now where you see that there is something that could be perceived or that you are perceiving as a barrier. You're believing that you have this as a challenge. Here's the thing. Are you now, not only are you seeing that as a giant in your midst, something that is going to be impossible for you to deal with, but as if this is the part that gets me about this scripture. That's enough that they were giants. They were giants and we were normal-sized people. See, that alone, that would have been something to take on. That would have been challenge enough. But look what we do in our human psyche. They were giants and we're grasshoppers. Not even normal size. Or I'm a little shorter than average, you could have said. You follow me? But they skipped all of that, loped outside of humanity, of the scale of humanity, and saw themselves as grasshoppers. Where are we doing that in our lives? Where in our individual lives are we seeing the situation, the circumstance before us as a giant, and we're not even willing to see ourselves as an average-sized human that is going to have to, come on, David, why don't we see ourselves as David, get thee a slingshot? We don't even see ourselves as David with a slingshot. We have decided we are grasshoppers, not just in our own mind, but they see us as grasshoppers too. Yes. This is our story on some level. And you may be taking exception in your current bite-sized piece of life. But across the continuum, where are we downsizing our power? Where are we abdicating our faith and our sense of not just who we are, but some would say whose we are? that there's a greater presence that surrounds and enfolds each and every one of us, giving us access to much, much more. So I've come today to invite you to just surrender your grasshopperness. And you don't have, surrender your sense of grasshopper, because that's an inner thought. Orson Martin, who founded Success Magazine. Do y'all remember Success Magazine? You got to go back some. My mother told me about it. He offers us this. Most of our obstacles would melt away if instead of cowering before them, if instead of sensing that we are grasshoppers, if instead of cowering before them, we should make up our minds to what, Gary Lynn Floyd? Walk boldly through them. Keep on walking in faith. Sure, I don't know what's on the other side. That's what faith means. I don't know. But I believe. And as I believe, it transforms. It transforms because I keep on. Because I am engaging the divine, the power, the presence, this adventure in faith. And it really is. Some would say it's a wild ride. It's an adventure in faith. Someone after the first service asked me about, it was a personal question on their part about faith. And, my very first thing is, I'm not answer girl. I couldn't possibly have answers for everybody. I'm seeking my own answers. But here's an experience that I had many, many years ago when I was a practitioner student. One of the assignments for practitioner students was to write a thought paper on faith. And I didn't know to call it that then, a crisis in faith. And so I struggled with this paper. Lord, I struggled. In fact, it was a point at which I thought, I'm not going to be a practitioner, because it was clear to me that I didn't have faith. And so this paper was forever on my mind. I was commuting to San Francisco from the East Bay, and so I was on BART one day, and I had my little notes, and I was just really thrashing myself about. I was really kind of beating myself up about not having faith, and I was going through it. And then, have you ever been on a New York subway where it does the little jiggle it does, on the New York subway it does way more than jiggle. It gives you a shake, and the lights flicker. Well, on BART, heading to the city, it did the Bay Area version of that. You know what I mean? It's not a New York thing, but it did that, and it reminded me of that. And it kind of snapped me to for a moment. And I thought, Andriette, you are now underwater in a metal tube. And you don't know who's driving this train. You've not seen their latest drug test. You don't know anything about the driver, if they're awake or asleep, or even present, and what degree to which they are capable of being present to this ride. And you are riding and writing a paper simultaneously. Baby, you got faith. You have more faith than you ever trusted. In the bay, in a metal tube. If instead of cowering before them, we make up our minds to keep on walking, to keep on having faith as we cross the street, as we start up our cars and pull out of a parking spot, as we pick up the phone. Don't we have faith that we're going to be able to connect to somebody? Surely we do. as we engage our faith as we never have before. We just push the limits. And so join me in prayer. Join me in knowing with me that there is one life, and that one life is magnificent, that it's whole, it's perfect, it's complete, it's boundless. It is what I am. I am a part, an aspect, an expression of the divine. Each and every one of us is. Oh, and so I have faith. I have faith that in this connectedness, in this knowing that I am breathing the breath of God right now, and that the breath of God is breathing me, that right where I am living the life of God. And the life of God is breathing me. That each of us is breathing the breath of God and living the life of God. And the life of God is living each and every one of us. No matter where we are or how we are and when it is happening, the life of God is living all life. And all life is living the life of God. So why am I tripping? To know that all things are working together for good. And that in any given moment, I get but a glimpse. And so I declare that I rely on faith to see and sense beyond that is available for me to know and sense in the moment. That I trust. That I trust the divine unfolding in life, that at some point we accomplish a world that works for everyone. That we launch that intention in our heart, planting it like a seed, and then nurturing it as it is required toward the harvest of good, of love, of joy, of peace, of harmony, of inclusion, of acceptance, truly a world that works for everyone. And for right now, I speak this word knowing that it's a word of power and love that is healing. So for health and wellness and for relationships and for prosperity and abundance of all things good, I speak this word that it is a healing vibration, that it resonates with every other healing vibration, and that wherever two or more are gathered, touching and agreeing, it is manifest. And so I declare that this is done and done well in God. And so I simply release it into the certainty of law, knowing that it's love and that it's always working in its purest form. I know that this is done. And I accept it. I seal it for all eternity by simply saying, and so it is.